So things got turned on their head by this cataclysm of World War I. But the idea of cowardice is so deeply ingrained in our contempt for it that it comes back. And there were also some particular things about World War II that were different from World War I, and especially Guadalcanal featured these, at least in prospect, before the fighting took place, that made this idea of cowardice perhaps stronger than it might otherwise have been. World War II was, in peculiar ways, and I use this term loosely, a better war. We know from Mr. Burgett the terrible atrocities and the terrible number of deaths. 50 million is right. And that, of course, the number doesn't begin to tell the story. But while World War I was a static affair, a series of stalemates decided by attrition and depletion, World War II saw enormous amounts of ground gained and lost, as well as dramatic offensives and retreats. There was something especially dynamic about Guadalcanal, and this is a page from James Jones's book, World War II, the sort of history memoir, in which he says that Guadalcanal was the site of the first American offensive of the war, and as such, that's in the dim letters down there, it got perhaps more than its fair share of notoriety, both in history and in the media of the time. There was an air of adventure and sense of individual exploit about it, at least in the press, where small units of platoon and company strength still maintained importance. That's the end of the quotation. So a man could do something in such a setting, or fail to do it, where cowardice comes in, and it would matter. Let's see what my next slide says. Okay, sorry. Sorry it's so dim. I thought it would lend an air of authenticity to it if I actually photocopied the page and then cut it out. What I should have been typing it in. Here is, so there's one reason that cowardice was still in the air, was a concept that people held great contempt for and put great store in that there was something that that motivated, the fear of cowardice motivated people. Another reinforcing this idea was propaganda and indoctrination. Krall, I can't remember what his rank was, had volunteered for some job. He wanted to be where the action was. He said, in peace or in war. A hep kid from Jersey, he had nevertheless believed the four-color propaganda leaflets. He had not known that the profession of first scout of a rifle platoon was a thing of the past and belonged in the Indian Wars, not to the massed divisions, superior firepower, and tighter social control of today. And the propaganda that we had, radio and film, were available to propagandists. And I use the term neutrally, not as this terrible thing. Both sides were using propaganda. But it was making the internal world of the soldier more colonized space. We talk here in this next paragraph, and here he lay. I'm not sure who he is. Maybe it's Fife, as bound and tied by his own mental processes and social indoctrination, as if they were ropes, simply because while he could admit to himself privately that he was a coward, he did not have the guts to admit it publicly. It was agonizing. Indoctrination has been around since Homer, but it was only in 1941 that American forces and the American authorities adopted a formal program of indoctrination of soldiers. Let me review my outline. I hope you forgive a little bit of shuffling. The deepest contempt and I think the source of why cowardice is still with us, and we saw it as a term of great. You'll remember it after 9/11. The perpetrators of the World Trade Center bombings were called cowards, and this set off a great debate, and I think a reflection of the fact that this term is maybe the worst thing we can call somebody, even if we're not using it precisely in the way I defined it. And I think in part it's because it has this roots in our bodies, and this is an important reason I think that Mr. Jones resisted censorship and wanted to have the shit and piss in his novel. We see here, it was then that Fyfe had to make a heroic decision. Terrified as he was of standing up and being shot at by some invisible party, he was more terrified of being accused for his cowardice. Not only the body and its maybe the archetypal instance of cowardice is when somebody loses control of his bowels or bladder, right? One remove from that is we seem to have a desire to stand up. Thousands and hundreds of thousands of years of evolution got us on our 2 feet. And even in the face of these terrible weapons of war, we see men actually debating with themselves whether they need to hide behind that trench or whether it would not, in fact, be more honorable to be upright. Stein, he's a captain, I believe, had been confused and rattled by the air raids. He did not know whether, as an officer and commander, he should stay up in the open or get down in his hole like everybody else. It was a constant battle every night and every raid. It was heroic to walk about and disdain to take shelter as officers had done in Napoleon's time. And he could have done that, but it was common sense in this war to take care of yourself and protect your government's investment in you, not get yourself killed pointlessly in some air raid. Every raid made an exhausting decision for him before he finally went to his hole, and it was the same sort of thing now with this decision. You can see, even in the Red Badge of Courage, and I've looked at Civil War court-martial cases where debates about whether it is okay to hide and take cover. And this was back long before there were these longer range and more powerful weapons. But still, there's something about us that disdains getting down on all fours. Here's Fyfe again. Earlier, when Stein had first done it with his stupid, pleased pride, that is, standing up, shining all over his face, Fyfe had forced himself to stand straight up on his knees for several seconds in order that no one might tag him with the title of coward. But he felt that was enough. This is General George Patton standing upright. We'll meet him again. Back to Fyfe. And Patton had sort of trained himself not even to flinch when shells went off in the background, and he made a point of standing up and making himself a target. Fyfe again. Fyfe crouched flat in this and put his cheek to the mud. Slowly he stopped weeping, and his eyes cleared, but as the other emotions, the sorrow, the shame, the self-hatred seeped out of him, under the pressure of self-preservation, the fourth component, terror, seeped in to replace them until he was only a vessel, completely filled with cowardice, fear, and gutlessness. I think we don't hear enough about what a great writer of sentences Jones was. That one of the earlier ones I read, but was it really worth it to die, to be dead, so everyone wouldn't think you were a coward? And I love that, to die, which is, it just happens and it's over, but then comma, to be dead, and that's a more permanent condition, which we, in the novel, the characters are always contemplating quite forcefully and elaborately about what it was like not to be there and not to have anybody remember you. And that was the way he lay. This was war. There was no superior test of strength here, no superb swordsmanship, no bellowing Viking heroism, no expert marksmanship. This was only numbers. He was being killed for numbers. Why, oh why, had he not found and taken to himself that clerkish desk job far in the rear which he could have had?